But first, policy. President Trump here to walk us through his policy proposals as Democrats and the mainstream media work overtime, trying to disassociate Vice President Kamala Harris from her record in the Biden-Harris administration. First, let's take a look at spending policy. $7 trillion spent on her watch on several packages, including the two spending packages that Kamala Harris was the breaking tie vote for passage, the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan, which together cost about $2.5 trillion of the $7 trillion spent. The Biden-Harris four-year spending spree, largely for their climate change agenda, sent inflation up to 40-year highs, at its peak averaging about 9.1%. With essentials like food and shelter currently up 20%. Energy currently up nearly 33% due to the White House's new regulations on the fossil fuel industry, effectively shutting down America's oil and gas independence while pushing their green energy agenda. Fear is now gripping investors over the impact on jobs and a slowing economy. The stock market sold off on Friday on evidence of cracks in the jobs market. The Dow down 610 points, the Nasdaq down 417, with job creation slowing and the unemployment rate rising to the highest level in almost 3 years, as new worries are now emerging over the threat of an impending recession. Perhaps the most glaring policy failure of the Biden-Harris administration, the southern border, which Harris was tasked to help oversee. Customs and Border Protection reporting over 8 million migrants have been encountered, with nearly 2 million additional that we know of having evaded apprehension altogether and disappearing into America without a trace. Border Patrol agents have arrested 360 people on the FBI's terrorist watch list over the last 3 years. That's up from just 26 during the previous 5 fiscal years. The unending crisis at the open border has led FBI Director Christopher Wray to recently warn of a potential major terrorist attack to come on U.S. soil. There has been a surge of fentanyl deaths among Americans as well. The drug cartels working with communist China exploiting Biden and Harris's border policy to import deadly drugs into the country. Overseas in Afghanistan, the White House hastily withdrew the U.S. military from the Bagram airfield in the middle of the night, which allowed the Taliban to take over the country in lightning speed from the United States-backed Afghan government. That decision, of course, tragically led to the deaths of 13 U.S. service members who were killed in a suicide bombing during the Biden-Harris botched withdrawal. In Eastern Europe, Russia invaded Ukraine despite Harris meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky and other world leaders less than a week earlier in Germany. The war now in its 893rd day, with no end in sight, as the U.S. has given a total of $175 billion in aid to Ukraine. In the Middle East, just this last week, Iran ordered a direct attack on Israel in retaliation for Israel confronting Iran and its proxies head-on after 1,200 people were murdered by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. The word is that direct retaliation could happen tonight in Israel. Biden and Harris's support for Israel, America's closest ally in the Middle East, of course, has weakened and wavered, including holding back critical weapons to Israel in the face of a rise of anti-Israel sentiment within the Democrat Party and their desire to revive the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal. Meanwhile, the Chinese Communist Party has ramped up its espionage and propaganda against America, including a Chinese spy balloon flying freely across the continental country, operating secret police stations in major cities, and the continuing theft of American innovation and technology, with still no accountability for unleashing COVID on the world and then covering it up. The lack of any harsh response to any of this from the Biden-Harris team has led Chinese President Xi Jinping to publicly claim reunification with Taiwan is inevitable, which is home to an estimated 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductors. Former President Trump this week walked me through his economic policy proposals for a second term in this exclusive interview.